Hey, it's late July and it's time for an energy update for sure. This is brought to you by very clear guidance to step in and talk about what the hell's going on. So I want to start by talking a little bit about the energy of July. What I discussed in the 2024 year ahead was that we would reach kind of a peak growth pinnacle in the month of June. That was based on the fact that the planets were very direct during that time, and we were starting to have multiple planetary retrogrades at the end of June and into July, more so in August, a little bit more in September with a few direct motions, and then really a cleanup summary for the rest of this year, preparing for 2025. So I want to talk a little bit about how July actually shaped up before I go into the energy of August. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. I create energy updates pretty much whenever I feel like it's time. I try to do it as regularly as possible, but I just listen and I know when it's time. And when it's time, it's time. So right now it's time. July's energy was all about being more receptive, having more curiosity in our relationships, and the receptivity and curiosity would bring the joy of deeper connections. Now, this was going to be a bit challenging if we navigate vulnerability next to shame. If you're the kind of person that feels a sinking feeling or feels shame next to vulnerability, which in some very sensitive or very big feeling people, that's part of the process for you. That's part of your experience. Now, if you are feeling that, there's probably some prying open that happened over the course of July that would have potentially opened your heart to understand what you're actually really committed to, what you actually really value, what you actually want to initiate into your world. We had cardinal water energy as July opened, and we also had Black Moon Lilith move back. It moved into Libra, and that is where the South Node is. And so this could have opened you up to understanding truths about yourself, truths about your relationship patterns, truths about how you navigate with protection, what that protection looks like. And protection can come in all different forms, protection. I'm trying to protect the security of my relationship. I'm trying to save face. I'm trying to protect the harmony. I'm trying to protect your feelings. I'm trying to protect my feelings. I'm trying to protect my interests. There was a lot of that energy as the month opened in July. And what we additionally felt was a releasing of, well, let's just say that for the last 9 months before July, we were clearing up our side of the street. We went through a lot of Black Moon Lilith and Virgo issues where we faced our fears around, well, what if it's me? What's my issue? What do I need to clear up? How am I wrong in this equation? How could I make it right? How can I be in my higher integrity with this? What is my integrity? And so it was very personal for the last 9 months, just figuring out what our integrity actually was in the world. And now that we've completed Black Moon Lilith's kind of trek through Virgo and it's entered into Libra, we're saying, well, I'm doing my part. I'm in my integrity. I know my part of this relationship is for me to tell the truth about what that is. I'm not sure that my truth will still work in this relationship the way it has in the past. And so I need to face some truths about how I have compromised my integrity for the sake of this relationship or for the sake of this harmony or for the sake of my protection, etc. So a lot of that started opening up in July. if we allowed it. We could have doubled down on the old patterns for as much of the month as we could, but we faced a lot of really strong alignments mid-month that would have cracked it open. There would have been like a wrecking ball situation around the 15th of July that would have pretty much tore down any of those coping strategies and created a lot of stormy, destabilizing, messy, unstructured opportunities to really look at more of the truth. When a lot of the walls and coping strategies are broken apart, it leaves us seeing the truth and reality of our situations. And hopefully, with receptivity and curiosity, we were able to navigate that in a way that could allow higher integrity for all parties involved. We're not the only ones that have stepped into greater integrity with ourselves. We're not the only ones that are witnessing how much of our authenticity we've had to sacrifice for harmony in our relationships. And this wrecking ball would have made it really, really clear for not only ourselves, but for every person that we're in relationship with, whether that's people on our team, our romantic partners, our family structure, whatever. So we had a lot to sort of sort through and clean up. And if we doubled down on pride or doubled down on protection, you might be experiencing a strong separation of something right now. You might be feeling like you're in the ending of something. And this is being promoted by the sun being in an opposition to Pluto, the full moon in Capricorn at the last degree of Capricorn, which is like an ending degree anyway. This was also kind of opposite Pluto. Pluto is saying, listen, we're giving you this last chance to really, really, really clear out the old patterns that you used over the last 16 years to feel secure in the world, to make you feel like you're okay, that you can exist on your own, that you're fine, you can keep doing things the way that you have. That is actually a block to the increase of your consciousness. And if you continue to believe that you're separate and alone and you don't need anyone and you're fine and you're the boss and you're independent and all these things, which are really strong qualities to have, we need those qualities when we enter into the larger arena. But if we keep clinging to things that really keep us from opening up into intimacy, into vulnerability, into truth, then we're going to feel a lot more physical deconstruction elements in our life right now. And it could feel, it doesn't have to feel so violent. It doesn't have to feel so painful. There is something that happens in the grace of humbleness, in the grace of real intimate honesty with ourselves and with everyone else. There is a really beautiful grace to allowing things to be what they are, to have their own autonomy, to just really let go and release attachment to how it goes, and to really want what's most integrous and authentic for all parties involved. So that brings us sort of to the week we're in now. We're in this last week of July. We are in Mercury's shadow. Mercury is going to retrograde in August. August is a month where the heart will release its attachment to old evidence. The heart releases its attachment to old evidence. So this is another kind of purge moment. What's interesting about this August is we have Mars in Gemini and we have Venus in Leo. Now, the last time Mars retrograded, it was through Gemini. That was in 2022 into 2023. The last time Venus retrograded, it was in Leo, and that was last summer, last August. So both of these planets of masculine and feminine energy, of receptivity, of letting things in, of really feeling deeply and knowing from our sensations and inner intuitive knowing, and then taking action on that. That's the Mars principle. That's the way we actually serve the feminine wisdom, is by acting from that wisdom place. Both of these planets did a reconstruction in their last retrograde, and now they're in a part of the cycle where they're covering this ground again, and they're taking a look at what has transpired since their retrograde. Is this how I expected it to be? Is this the way I left the temple? Is this the way that I reorganized everything so carefully? And so Venus is asking us to check the space of what our heart is deeply committed to. You may have taken on a valiant new vision last August, and you may have worked really hard over the last year to bring it into fruition. And now that it's here, is this what you had hoped it would be? Do you need to be a little more specific? Are there some details you put in place that are not ultimately giving you the sensation that you thought they would give you? Or are there some minor releases and adjustments that you need to make that are based on new evidence, not old evidence? When Mars is in Gemini, Mars is checking the story. What's your story about this? What are your preferences about this? Are these stories the ones that you still believe in? Are you acting from that story in a certain way? What would happen if you slowed down and checked the story a little bit? Or what would happen if you were really honest about what you actually prefer in this moment? So it is a strong check-in point. And if we can approach it with that kind of energy, the grace of release will happen a lot easier. With Mercury moving retrograde it'll start in Virgo just a tiny bit. It's great because Mercury is going to move into Virgo and give us some tangible, clear, process-oriented, earth-based evidence of what's going on. And once we see it, it's going to move retrograde at the beginning of August, and we're going to be able to rewrite and restructure all of that so that it's really aligned with what our heart truly believes, what our heart truly longs for ourselves, for our loved ones, for humanity at large. So don't hold too tightly in August. The best thing that we can do is have loose fingers. Just open your hands. In some ways, surrender to the process at hand, surrender to allow things to land. I'm reading a book right now. Where is my book? Well, it's something, oh man, maybe I should grab it. It has a list of consciousness calibrations. Like, it has a list of ways of being and the calibration that way of being is in consciousness. It's hard. I'm not doing it justice. It's like a brilliant thing. Maybe I'll post it in my Instagram. Basically, I've been learning that the space of neutrality is above courage. So oftentimes when we have a lot of courage, that courage to speak the truth, that courage to move into our fear, that courage to show up, that courage to have that hard conversation, courage is actually a higher frequency than pride. Courage is what takes us out of the space of knowing that we're okay, that we're right, that we're doing the right thing, that we got our side of the street cleaned up, that we're proud of what we're bringing to the table. Pride often will show up in conversations where we know what we want and how we want this to go and what we believe about this. And it takes courage to open up and be receptive to hearing someone else's perspective, and then to tell the truth in those situations. So what happens though is that's not the end of the story. Oftentimes, once we say the courageous thing or we do the courageous thing, there's a space of neutrality afterward that feels a little flat. It is not the same as apathy, but it is a little boring, and it doesn't necessarily give you the motivation or the drive or the clarity or the grit that you have when you're trying to raise your energy above like anger or above resentment or above sadness or whatever. So we often get into the space of neutrality after courage, and from neutrality, there's just an ocean of willingness, not willfulness, but willingness to take an action as it arises, or willingness to allow our greatest excitement to land rather than trying to force it. The thing that's interesting is it talks about how when you're below the state of courage, it takes a lot of force. We've got to have discipline. We've got to create structure. We've got to use force to really push ourselves into the next level of consciousness. But once we hit courage and neutrality, we experience, instead of force, we experience power. And power is really what we experience when we move through the gates of fear. When we move through the gates, I talk a lot about Black Moon Lilith medicine being somewhat of a gatekeeper, and it takes a little bit of force to push us through the fears of the gates. But on the other side of the gate is power that we were not having access to, power that we were preventing ourselves from feeling. And that power is a magnetizing force. It's a generating field. It's very, very creative, and it pulls us rather than us having to use our will and ego to force things. And so what I'm suggesting is that in the month of August, we could actually allow, if we allow ourselves to be open-handed, if we allow ourselves to release attachment to old evidence, we could actually allow ourselves to be in a state of neutrality, which gives rise to a power that's larger than us, a power that is intelligent, that's part of the field of wisdom that we're all connected to. And that field of wisdom can give us the information that we need for the next leg of our journey. That field is beyond linear time. That field is more powerful than any forceful effort that we could create for ourselves. Once connected to that field creates synchronicities that organize people, places, things, finances, divine appointments. That field is the wisdom field, the love field. And it takes a lot of energy to allow ourselves to actually access that field. And what I'm suggesting is in August, if we can really be with where we are, accept where we are, accept what the next leg of the journey is asking for, and have a willingness to be moved through these layers of experience. I know I'm being so abstract right now. Things will readjust, things will reorient. We don't have to use so much force. And if we do, it'll just, a metaphor that's been coming to me a lot lately is, when a woman's giving birth, how her cervix dilates, and there's a certain willingness to allow it to dilate that person has to find within herself. And if you try to force or push before the dilation is complete, it could actually swell the tissues and inflame the dilation and decrease in dilation. And make it more painful and last longer than necessary. And so the month of August could feel like a dilation moment with contractions and relaxation. And I actually have all of the astrology for August in front of me. I'm going to go through it kind of blow by blow, so you can kind of know when those contractions are coming and when it's time to release, and just kind of how to be with that and know that at the end of it, there will be something tangible and beautiful and restructured and clear and apparent that we will dedicate our energy to in September. But all of our energy in August should go to allowing this dilation to come to its greatest expansion. I hope I finished that thought properly. I'm going to talk a little bit about the weeks of August and go into kind of the astrology of August. So the first week of August is going to have the energy of sort of feeling victorious after battle. It's going to feel like it's August. We're in Leo season. We're in the Lion's Gate. Like we've come to this place. We've been through some hard things. Some things are finally moving, and we've overcome this thing. And like there'll be a bit of a congratulatory feeling, but we're really only halfway through the journey. We've reached this new territory, and now it's time to face what is with the new wisdom that we've accumulated over the last cycle. So the first thing is on the 2nd, Venus is going to square Uranus, Venus in Leo, in the space of the heart. She's going to say, okay, this is what I actually need. This is what's actually sustainable for me. This is what I actually have to do. It's sobering and serious, and it's in service. The changes that are initiated could feel profound, could feel disruptive. It's a moment of honesty. It's a moment of proof, a moment of truth. And that is happening right before we have this new moon on the 4th. The new moon's in Leo. So we'll proclaim this new desire, this new shift that needs to happen in order to serve the needs of Venus. And then Venus will move into Virgo. And this is an energy where we are ready to stand up for ourselves. We're ready to stand up to our passion, for our passion. We're ready to hold our boundaries. We've earned something with this full moon. We've earned having our back. We've earned, like we understand what entrance to the temple really looks like at this point. Temple of the heart. And we're advocating for ourselves on this new moon. And it feels like we've got a confidence in ourselves that we maybe haven't felt for a really, really long time, if ever. And immediately after kind of we make this stand, I think we're also claiming to look at things a little bit differently. And on the 5th, when Mercury begins retrograding, it'll retrograde starting in Virgo, starting in the temple of this is what needs to happen now. And it's time to get to work. So Mercury will retrograde in Virgo, and it'll retrograde all the way until do I have it here? I think it's the 21st. I'm not sure why. Hold on, I don't know why I didn't write it on my calendar. Mercury will move direct. Oh, the 28th. Oh, it's all the way the 28th. I was looking at the 21st. It is the 28th. So we have really from the 5th to the 28th to work on this project, to get the temple of the heart clear, formatted. This is a good time for editing things that you're deeply committed to, editing your content. I know a lot of people are changing the way that they want to do business, changing the way they want to approach their life's work. They are repackaging stories that they've written in the past or content that they've created from the past. I think a lot of leaders in the field are seeing that the primary focus of our work moving forward, it needs to move from a space of gatekeeping information to making that information more accessible so that people can actually do the work of elevating themselves on their own. And then, because this really is like a independent work month, I actually feel like there's going to be a lot of people saying, I just need to work on me. I just need to do my own thing. I just need to, like, you do you, boo, like, just go for it. Just focus. It works best for everyone if we all have our own backs and we all commit to what we're super passionate about, or we all accept what our strengths are and really shine in those strengths. And so there's going to be a lot of people kind of doing their own rituals, their own morning practices, like they're like, just let me do it my way. So if we can provide resources to people who are ready to do it their way, like I don't have all the information about how to do certain things that I want to do, and you better believe I'm going to find certain resources online or through other people, and I'm going to ask them, can you help me with this? There could be some library I receive or a book I'm reading, and I'm going to follow it in my own way with my own structure, having my own results. And whatever happens through that process of August, there's going to be a clear understanding of who you want to ally with in the future, who you want to step into deeper optimization with. And I think that that's what the transition of a lot of entrepreneurs in the online space or content creators are facing. They're realizing that a lot of the value isn't in the information, but it's in the optimization that can happen with a very tailored and bespoke experience. So I believe that the month of August is going to have us restructuring a lot of what we're doing so that we can create space to have more quality experiences with folks that are really ready to fine tune and optimize. So we're going to start that on the 5th. This could also be in the space of relationships. Like, what if, you create some strong boundaries on the 2nd, you claim these things for yourself. Everyone in your romantic relationship, you claim these things for yourself. You commit yourself to the work on the 5th. You really unravel these old patterns and these old stories that you've told yourself. You begin to feel that internal commitment when Mercury and Venus come to a conjunction in Virgo. Like, I'm in my integrity when I do this for myself because I love myself. This is the way it quickens. And then we get to the week of the 11th through the 17th, and we kind of hit our first quarter square moon. It's our first big challenge to our new endeavor. And it's really getting into the space of where we feel a little bit insecure. The moon will be in Scorpio. And really, this insecurity could arise because things are actually moving fast now. People that we thought were dependent upon us are excelling without us. Information's moving quickly. And I feel we might just be like, whoa, this is showing me a lot more of my own truth with this process. I'm having a lot more intimacy with myself and how I've operated in the past. There could be some just wow, I didn't realize how much I was projecting onto others about this. And this is when on the 14th, Mercury moves back into Leo. Mars and Jupiter come into a conjunction in Gemini on the 14th as well. So this is kind of a big contraction point. It could be a contraction point that causes us to deeply focus, to understand what's actually needed in order for us to continue this process of evolution that we've committed to. There could be a really strong piece of news or information that comes in on the 14th that is like, You may have noticed it even in the month of July when you're in conversation with your partner and someone drops a new piece of information and they're like, how are you about this? And it's like, whoa, this is new information. I'm going to need to take this in for a second. I believe the 14th is going to be another day that's like that, where it's like, oh, okay, that's going to change my behavior a little bit. That's going to change how I approach things a little bit. So this is also right when Mercury moves back into Leo. So it's like, now I really know why I have to commit to my heart even more. And the 15th, we're having a Sun trine Chiron moment. So we get this information and immediately it shines light on one of the reasons why we've struggled a little bit with our personal self-worth or our personal validity. There could just be this healing moment with this new information that comes in that's like, oh, I have been operating with this assumption for so long. And now that I know this truth, I feel so much better about myself generally. And this moves right into the 16th when Mars squares Saturn. And it's like, okay, well, now that I know that, and I actually understand the medicine for this wound more clearly, I can really push up against these constraints and these limitations that have been here for me all along. Now I know how to carve myself against these limitations that are coming up. So it's kind of cultivating a reverence for any kind of structural limitation that is pushing on us to evolve through behavior on the 16th. Then the 18th, we have Mercury squaring Uranus. This is the moment where the arrow is sort of landing. We are like, oh, all the things that we've been changing, working on, things that were kind of initiated on the 2nd of August with Venus's square to Uranus, we are now understanding the proof of what that really means for us. We've got kind of an optics check. We've got the numbers. We've got the evidence. And this evidence is going to tell us whether or not our efforts have been positive for us. The 19th I have circled. I think the 19th is going to be a really, really, really strong day. Like if we were in the metaphor of that dilation, the 19th might be the moment where we see a crowning. There's a crowning happening. It's coming. Like we're reaching the point of no return for the evidence of whether or not things are working. And Venus is opposite Saturn, Venus is square Jupiter, Jupiter square Saturn. We've got a full moon in Aquarius, like, hello, this is a big moment. And it's going to impact the way that we commit ourselves in the month of September. And not only that, it's like, if we sent out an arrow of manifestation in July, if we decided to start initiating something in July based on our vulnerabilities and our feelings, this is the moment where that arrow of initiation has landed on solid earth, but the solid earth is like an asteroid, and it came with a lot of fire, and it came with a lot of like a smoke cloud, and we can't actually see where the arrow is completely landed yet, but we know that it has landed. So I think the 19th might be a moment where we're like, we're like, it's the moment in the movie where we're like, did they survive? What happened? Are they still alive? Like, wow. And I think that the evidence of that finally becomes clear on the 22nd. The 22nd is a moment of inventory, and Venus will be square Mars, Mercury will be trine Chiron, the sun will move into Virgo at this point. This is a moment where we say, Okay. I've been trusting Venus to do her thing in the temple of her completion. I've been trusting Venus to have integrity. I've been trusting Venus to set the standard of what she needs and deserves and demands for this in the space of this temple. And I've been trusting Mars to navigate his story, to act from the story, to follow through with what he believes. And this is the moment of truth where we get to take a look, like, how's it going? And so I think there'll be a conversation that's really real about resources, about what will happen next, about the plan for the future. This is a moment where you guys will be really sitting down at the table, either sitting down at the table with yourself and your own reality, or sitting down at the table with some kind of relationship situation. And you'll admit, these are the parts of my wounds that I was bringing to the table before. They will admit, these are the parts of my wounds I was bringing to the table before. This is the work I've done to remedy that with myself and to be in greater love and alignment with myself. And how can we move forward from this? Are we creating a more permanent separation, or is there a lot of work that we still need to do to bring this thing back together? So that conversation continues into the last week of August, and whatever you decide, there's a moment of taking an inventory, taking stock, seeing what it is that is the legacy of everything you've initiated really since April. You're going to be saying like, well, this year I set out to do this. I took the first few months to really look into this. I took action on these things. Now I've got this to show for it. And this is essentially what the harvest of this work has been. The last quarter is on the 26th and it's in Gemini. And so I believe that the communication of all of this inventory is going to continue. And while Venus trines Uranus on, Venus will trine Uranus on the 27th, and this is a callback to things that she initiated on the 2nd. So this is either going to be a moment where another decision for evolutionary change is come to. This is a moment where, if there was a separation, you're agreeing to continue to be separated, or you're agreeing to come back together. She's going to be in an opposition to Neptune on the 28th, and Mercury will begin moving direct on the 28th. So whatever is decided on the 27th, the forward understanding and momentum will begin again on the 28th of like, all right, let's do this. And then Venus will move into Libra and she'll be in a trine to Pluto. So when she moves into Libra, she's got an extra support system in creating diplomacy, fairness, relationship responsibility. She's clear on what it is she's trying to co-create now, and she's willing to release and omit even more of the past evidence. So you can see that there's a very clear arc to the month that is setting us up to get very, very disciplined and determined in the month of September. Yeah, and the month of September is going to be a month where Pluto is back into the last degree of Capricorn again. There could be sensations that kind of feel like patterns are repeating, but these patterns are repeating not because it's going back to the old way, but because sometimes you've got to go back to that old storage unit, or back to that old team structure, or back to that old living situation, or into the archives in order to close it up and close it out. And the closing up, close it out cycle will only last for September, October, and a little bit into November. We've got this window of time in September and October to really make the final cut. And like the image I'm getting is there's been a storage unit that you've had a bunch of your old stuff in, and you had this dream that one day you would bring that stuff into a new office space or something like that, because you're going to go back to the old way where you had an office and you had a team, and you wanted to keep some of that stuff so that you didn't have to invest in it again when it was time to do that. But now you're realizing you're never going to go back to that model of working. So you've got to go back into that old storage unit and decide what you need to throw away, donate, sell, etc. And you're kind of putting in your notice that you'll be out of there by the end of the month, or at least by October 31st. Like, I really feel the energy of September is an energy of like, go through the mundane shit, go through all the tangible paperwork, like money, like go cancel all your subscriptions, like go through the earth stuff in September, so you really, really know what you're working with when it comes to collaborating with others or divvying out to others. So by September, you know what your donation pile is, what your sale pile is, and what needs to go to the dump and what you're going to keep. In October, you actually go through the disbursement of that, and you could be, letting employees go, it's like an ending to an era that worked during Capricorn, the last Capricorn season of the last 16 years. But this new age you're stepping into just doesn't require any of this. So you're canceling your website subscription maybe, or, there's some kind of structure that you just don't need anymore. And that's what the month of October is really for. I thought I heard something. So I'm not going to go too much further into that. I will say that I'm going to be opening up some early bird 2025 planning strategy readings. I'm going to offer it at a early bird price for the month of August and September, and maybe October too, because I have a tendency to get really, really overbooked in October, November, and December for these 2025 readings. So I'm going to open it up earlier this year. If you're the kind of person that loves to get these readings, and you're going to get them, this is the window of time when I'm going to offer it at that early bird special. I usually wait till later in the year to do it, but I'm in this mode of restructuring the journal for next year as well. And so my instruction was to just create this planning and strategy earlier in the year, and kind of I don't exactly know what the future of my work looks like beyond November. I believe something dramatic is changing. I believe, on a personal note, that I'm heading into more ministerial responsibilities, helping to bring other people into ordination of their sacred crafts. I've had several conversations about this, but I believe that my work is transitioning slightly. And so I feel like I'm going to use this bubble of Capricorn to open up the gates for some of this work and kind of clear the decks so that I can be prepared and willing to take action on the next leg of this journey. And that honestly could include astrology still. And I'm so holding it loosely and trusting the guidance that I've been given to position me wherever I'm doing the greatest good. Whatever is the greatest service for my gifts, skills, and abilities, that's what I am open to. And I am willing to prepare myself, my home, my vessel, my relationships. I'm doing a lot of that personal work in the month of August to just clean my temple up as much as I can so that I can receive the next working orders on my desk. And this entire year has been about that for me. And it's been really humbling and revealing and beautiful. And I feel more confident in my skin than I ever have. I feel like I've been renewed in certain ways that I never dreamed were possible. And there's this meme going around social media right now that talks about eagles. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but it says that eagles can live up to 70 years. But something interesting happens, and they have this choice about midway through their lifespan where their feathers become too heavy and their beak is brittle and their talons are not sharp, and they have to make a hard decision to go up onto the mountain and to break their beak apart, and to, when their beak grows back stronger, then they have to pluck out all of their talons and then pluck out all of their feathers and then let everything grow back, and then they get that second era of their world. And the first time I listened to that, I was like, is that true? And even if it's not, the fact that I'm hearing this right now and I'm in my Saturn opposition right now, I definitely felt like this year was the year it was that year for me where I had to cut my hair. I had to sacrifice certain things that like I was, to go all into it, it's a lot right now, but they're my equivalent of a beak and my equivalent of feathers and my equivalent of talons. I had to do a lot of the plucking and the breaking of all of that over this last year. And I feel like I'm finally feeling things growing back stronger and better, and trusting that all of this was setting me up for this next phase of my life. And yeah, it makes me emotional. And I feel so the word's not surrendered, but like confident, like held by my guidance and my spiritual path. And so anyways, I don't know how many of you are navigating your Saturn opposition right now, but I am, and Saturn's retrograding on my Saturn opposition right now too. So, and it's all in the space of my 9th and 3rd houses. So this is very much about like what I'm being guided. What's this life? What's the guiding principle of this life? And how do I continuously open my mind to accept the ability to be guided by something larger than myself, and to serve with that guidance, because that's such a Virgo thing, right? So anyways, that's a little update on me. I know it's been a while since I've done these reports. I have several things that I'm being guided to provide as resources in the coming fall, and I've just humbly allowed the time to continue to shape me without forcing myself out of any kind of ego force. Anyways, all right, we've been talking for 48 minutes. I think I covered everything I needed to cover. I'm going to be recording a podcast with Nicole Leno later about the transits of August, where I'll kind of go over what I just talked about in a more succinct way, including human design. So keep an eye out for that podcast if you're into it. And I will be back next time. Thank you, as always, for following along with me on this journey. I honor and I'm very grateful for every single one of you, and I feel you and I love you, and I thank you for walking this life with me. Until next time, bye-bye.